Hey, everybody. Welcome to Week 2 Corner Pub NFL pregame show coming at you here live on Heat Ratio Sports and Corner Pub Sports, our conjoined venture we're taking on here. Last week was a lot of fun. Got some pretty good feedback from last week's debut, and looking forward to keep this going on for the next several weeks here of the NFL season. So hope everyone had a good first week. It was an entertaining week for sure. As expected, there were some games that were unpredictable. I know a lot of people lost in their suicide pools because of the Bengals. If you listened to me last week, I did say that I didn't really like that line. I didn't think the Bengals were going to lose though. Let's see, Jay Paul. Let's get cooking. Selby Sizzlers, yes, sir. We'll have some Selby Sizzlers for you later on today. So, of course, if this is the first time you're joining. Basically, this show is going to just get you prepped for the week, the day of the slates of games today. Excuse me, giving you some bets and also give you some fantasy advice attached to each of those games. So should be a lot of fun. Of course, as always, this show is brought to you by WinDailySports.com. Use promo code HEAT for your Sunday discount. All the bets are powered by Win Daily, so check it out, WinDailySports.com, and of course, check out Heat Ratio. Sports, all the shows they have on the network. It's awesome. And of course, Corner Pub Sports on Friday nights at 8:15. So let's start it. Let's go. We got a full day of games today. One extra game today because of the Friday night game last week, the Eagles playing. So now you have an extra day of an extra game on the slate today. So here we go. Tampa Bay, Detroit. Detroit is 7.5-point favorites. Over under is 46.5. This game here is interesting because I think people aren't respecting Tampa Bay yet. I think 7.5 doesn't sound like a lot. I'd stay away from that one. I would still take Tampa Bay with the points. I don't think they're going to win. I think Baker Mayfield is better than people give him credit for. That rushing attack's not bad at all. Detroit had a great game last week against the Rams. Back and forth game. That was entertaining. There's just something about that point spread I just don't like. Jared Goff, fantasy implications. Jared Goff is averaging 5.8 more points per game, fantasy-wise, playing at home. And Tampa Bay's defense was eighth worst against quarterbacks. So that's kind of something to keep your eye on. Of course, if you have Jared Goff, you might want to consider starting him today. I think that's a good matchup for him. For some reason, I just think that the Buccaneers just hang around this game, and it comes down to the fourth quarter. So that's that one there. Next, we have the New York Jets, 3.5-point favorites on the road. And by the way, there's a trend this week, a lot of road favorites. So, it's that you don't usually see that. Usually it's a 3-point swing for a home team. But the fact that there's so many road favorites kind of makes you wonder, man. It's going to make you rethink what you're going to be betting on today. So, but in this case, Jets 3.5-point favorites on the road against Tennessee, over under 41. To be honest with you, the Jets looked pretty bad last week against San Francisco. However, Tennessee may have looked worse. That was a take that I was wrong about last week. I said that Will Levis will be a guy that you might want to take a look at if you're a Jordan Love owner. Or now a Tua owner, unfortunately. Tua obviously going to be out for the foreseeable future if he even comes back at all. But anyway, Will Levis has the weapons around him. He just can't play football. He looked absolutely horrendous last week. That offense, I don't think is going to be bad overall. I mean, Tony Pollard had a really good game last week. I'll get to him in a second. Just Tennessee just looks dismal, in my opinion. I like the Jets here to cover on the road. But speaking about talking about fantasy, Tony Pollard, as mentioned, last week he had 16 rushes for 82 yards and a touchdown. He averaged 5.1 yards a carry. Pretty efficient right there. It looks like they have a nice weapon there at the running back position in Tennessee. But the Jets defense is pretty decent. I think last week was a little bit of a tough gauge because San Francisco's defense is so good. San Francisco's offense is pretty good too. So, that was a tough gauge. I think today you might see a little bit better. You should see a better game from the Jets. Jay says he likes the Jets and he also likes Tampa. Yeah, I tend to agree, man. So Aaron Rodgers was pretty rusty. last week. Again, we just mentioned, against San Francisco, a little bit of a rough start. But he should have a nice bounce back game. And the guy I told you to keep an eye on last week was Alan Lazard. 2 touchdowns last week. I don't expect that again today, but if he continues to go to Alan Lazard, it's going to show you that there's that pass connection they used to have is back, and it's going to continue. So we'll see what happens with that going forward. Next game here on the slate is San Francisco, 5.5-point road favorites against Minnesota. That one's expected. I mean, San Fran looked pretty good last week, and I think Sam Darnold's going to come back down to earth today. Sam Darnold had a really good outing last week. I don't expect that to happen. I think the 49ers probably win this one with double digits, to be honest with you. Fantasy implications, Brandon Ayuk. Last week, he went up against Sauce Gardner-Johnson. You knew that was going to be a tough matchup for him. So I expect him to be better today. He has a good matchup against Minnesota. I think he's a play there. Debo obviously had a great game last week as well for San Fran, but and Ayuk did not. But I think today is Ayuk's game. I'm still picking the 49ers, like I said, to win by double digits, despite the fact that Christian McCaffrey's been placed on the IR. He's out for the next 4 weeks, in case you didn't know. If you're a CMC owner, of course you know that. But I don't think they're going to miss too much of a beat there. The running backs there are pretty decent in San Fran. The offensive line just opens up holes like crazy. So, and Minnesota's defense can be had. So I'm definitely taking San Fran there. Seattle, New England. Seattle going to New England is underdogs. I don't like that line. I'm taking Seattle in this one. I think they're putting a little too much on there for New England there. Jacoby Brissett played well last week. That defense is really good. I definitely mentioned that last week, that defense is something that I thought was disrespected last week with that line with the Bengals. But the fact that they're now giving points to Seattle, who I just don't understand that one. Personally, I think that's going to be a Seattle game there. Ryan says, Clan ass Will Levis nowhere near my ticket this week. Absolutely not, man. Absolutely not. Thanks for checking in too, dude. And then we got the next game here. We got Washington home favorites against the Giants. Again, that's probably about where it should be. It's close to about a pick 'em as you can get. Over under is 43 in that game. I'm just going to go with Washington, just based on the fact that the Giants don't know. It doesn't look like they know what they're doing offensively. I don't believe in Devin Singletary. I think Neighbors was pretty frustrated with Daniel Jones's play last week. Jones his first thing is to run, and we know in this league you got to be able to pass the ball, man. You got to be able to find your open receivers, hit those guys. He can't do it right now. There's already talks about him being benched. He can obviously come back today and have a strong game and kind of calm things down a little bit. I don't know. I think we got Ryan. Ryan says big day for Brian Robinson Jr. for Washington. You better hold your horses there. Now I'm playing Ryan in fantasy. Yeah, actually, I do actually agree with him too, because Brian Johnson Jr. is actually one of my plays. He should have had 2 touchdowns last week. He got stopped at the 1 yard line twice. He's clearly ahead of Austin Eckler in that depth chart. Eckler only had a couple carries. I think he only had 1 catch. Brian Robinson Jr. also had 3 receptions last week, which is a good thing for them, because that was something that's why they brought in a guy like Austin Eckler, because they wanted someone that catch the ball out of the backfield. Robinson's shown he can do that. So, that's a good sign for them. So I do like Washington in this game. But on the other side, the Giants, obviously everyone's high on Neighbors, but Wan'Dale Robinson for the Giants, he had 12 targets last week. He only had 44 yards. But, when you're talking about fantasy, like, target share is key. The more you get target, gives you opportunities for catches, especially in PPR leagues, more opportunities for catches, more opportunities to get things done. 12 targets. That's crazy. He should have even a better game against Washington today, because Washington allowed the second most points against wide receivers in fantasy last week, or fantasy last year. And then they also allowed 139 yards from the slot. And Wan'Dale Robinson, most of his catches, I believe all of his catches, came from the slot last week. So that would be a sneaky play there. If you have Wan'Dale Robinson sitting around, maybe check him out if you're, hovering around and you got a guy injured or something. So, well, that's going to lead us to the Selby Sizzler. As always, the Selby Sizzler is brought to you by Win Daily Sports. Use promo code HEAT for your Sunday discount. WinDailySports.com. So I'm going to give you 3 games here that I absolutely love the lines on, that I would put down some De Niro on. Let's go to the first one here. Indianapolis, 3.5-point road favorites against Green Bay. Over/under is 43. I love the Colts. And obviously, if Jordan Love was playing, I'd feel a little different about that. But I'm a big Anthony Richardson fan. That ball he threw 65 yards in the air last week for a touchdown. I mean, that was insane. They had a lead last week and they blew it. So obviously that's a concern if you're a Colts fan. Obviously that's a concern going into this game because Green Bay is a good offensive team. I expect them to kind of be able to take care of Malik Willis and do something. Let me see. What did he say? Jay said I can smell the sizzlers. There you go. Theo Rocco said my Rams are going to win today against the Cardinals. We'll get to that in a little bit. I actually think I agree with you on that one. Ryan Sheed said, I actually like the Packers. Don't ask me why. Hey, I can understand. I mean, they're a really good offensive team. So that makes total sense. I wouldn't blame you, but there's just something about this game, man. I think, that took a lot of wind out of their sails. And I think that Malik Willis is pretty bad. So I would sit, depending on who else you have, I would sit guys like Christian Watson today. I don't know if I'm even starting any Green Bay receivers, honestly. I know Jaden Reed's too damn good to sit, but I'd be worried right now to start any of these guys. Malik Willis has the lowest catchable ball rate in the NFL. He's just inaccurate. He's all over the place. I think he's gonna have the deer in the headlights look. So I'd be very weary of starting any Green Bay receivers today until you can see if Malik Willis can even put together half of a game plan going forward. But for Green Bay, I would lean on Josh Jacobs because of that exact reason. He had a really good game, a really good second half last week against the Eagles. I think that Jacobs is going to be heavily, heavily relied on today to help Green Bay's offense get down the field. So absolutely 100% start Josh Jacobs. That shouldn't be breaking news. But all right, next game, Selby Sizzler. The Saints taking on Dallas. Dallas 6-point home favorites. Under I wrote. Over/under is 46.5. This game here has Dallas written all over it. That's a Dallas line. I'm telling you, because the Saints had a really good game last week. They put up 41 points, something like that. However, they're playing against the Dallas defense that looked absolutely dominant last week. They shocked the hell out of me, I got to tell you. Jay says he likes Dallas. They shocked me last week. I didn't expect them to come out like that, and that defense is something to really look at here. I mean, it was a combination of Deshaun Watson really not looking that great, and as good as the Dallas defense is, probably. Deshaun Watson looks like he's lost. It's been 2 years now. I don't know what they're going to do there in Cleveland, but that's another situation. But Derek Carr looked pretty good last week for the Saints. But Dallas is averaging only 14 points for quarterbacks in fantasy, which is the lowest in the NFL against opposing quarterbacks. And like I said, they ate up Deshaun Watson last week. So I expect Derek Carr to come back down to earth today. And I would also sit Rico Dowdle. He had 8 carries for 26 yards last week. That's not efficient whatsoever. And the fact that Zeke was basically getting most of the carries there is kind of telling on what they think about Dowdle at this point. Maybe today, I mean, it's not like the Saints defense is that great. So maybe today Dowdle gets a little bit more of a look, but until he does, I wouldn't touch him right now. And then my last Selby Sizzler of the day, again, brought to you by WinDailySports.com. Eagles playing the Atlanta Falcons on Monday Night Football. Eagles are home, 6.5-point favorites at home. Over under is 47. We talked about this on the Corner Pub podcast on Friday night. I love the Eagles tonight, or tomorrow, I should say. I think they win by double digits. There's just Atlanta lost by 8 points last week. They scored a touchdown. The Pittsburgh Steelers did not, and they still lost by 8 points. That's pathetic. There's no other word about it. There's no other way to look at it. That's just downright pathetic. So do I expect them to do the same tomorrow night? No, I mean, Atlanta, it's Monday night. Kirk Cousins, we know the whole thing with primetime Kirk Cousins. He struggles. I think the Eagles defense is going to settle in a little more than they were last week. And the offense is just, I don't know how Atlanta stops the Eagles offense. I got to be honest. So I love the Eagles, that line tomorrow night on Monday Night Football. So, and Nick Foles retirement ceremony. Like, come on. You tell me they're not going to get fired up for that. So what do we have here in comments? We got EAGLES Eagles. That's right. Go Birds. And then Ryan said, agreed that Mikael Parsons is a game wrecker. Jay said, no reason for toast and butter pancakes or even a bowl of cereal on a Sunday morning. Selby scissors are all you need. Got to always count on Jay for the comments. Love you, brother. It's awesome. All right, so that'll do it for the Sizzlers. So let's go back to the rest of the games here. We got the LA Chargers 5.5-point road favorites taking on Carolina. I love the Chargers. I don't know what's going on there with Bryce Young. I kind of bashed him last week, and there was a part of me that was like, man, that was a little too mean. And then I watched him play, and I was reminded why I said what I said. He's dismal. He's absolutely dismal. They're going to have to look for something going forward because I don't think the guy can play. Carolina looks like another team that's completely lost. I don't know what their plan is, what they are trying to attempt to do. The Chargers aren't that great of a team either, but I just can't see how. And I know it's tough for a West Coast team going to the East Coast, so that line could be a little deceiving. There's a chance maybe Carolina hangs around. I just don't see it happen. I think that Herbert puts up some points early in this game, kind of gets out to a lead, and they kind of sit on it. For fantasy implications, J.K. Dobbins looked pretty good for the Chargers. He looked explosive. He's clearly ahead of Gus Edwards in carries. He had 135 yards and a touchdown last week. That's a pretty solid play. J.K. Dobbins, of course, was drafted in a lot of leagues late because of that situation. No one knew it was going to happen there. He looked really good last week. And that was always the thing about J.K. Dobbins. When he's healthy, he looks fantastic. It's when he's healthy. That's what matters. And I'm going to stay away from any Carolina Panthers players. Again, Young looked terrible. I didn't touch Thielen anywhere. I didn't. The running back, Jonathan Brooks. He's a rookie coming in, playing on behind a horrible line. Yeah, I'm good on that. All right, next game we got Cleveland and Jacksonville. Jacksonville home favorite, 3 points, over under 41.5. I'm going to take Jacksonville here. Not that I'm down on Cleveland after last week, but I'm down on Cleveland after last week. I know it's a tough gauge because you're going against such a good defensive team in Dallas last week, but there was just Mike Sedam. You're not even mentioning Miles Sanders talking about Carolina. Yeah, no. Excuse me. I'm still dealing with a chest cold from 2 weeks ago. It's just that Cleveland, again, Deshaun Watson, I think that's proven until, I'm going to sit there and doubt you until you prove it. He's looked bad for 2 years. And to me, Jacksonville's a pretty solid team. I just like Jacksonville at home today. However, I would start Amari Cooper if you own him. Last week he had 9 targets. He had only 2 catches for 16 yards. But I would expect that Deshaun would be able to, if he targeted him 9 times last week, clearly he likes going to him. Obviously he should. Amari Cooper's a good receiver. And against Jacksonville's secondary, he can get something done today. I would expect that Deshaun Watson has a little bit of a better game, and there's no David Njoku. So you might be relying a little more on Cooper today. And I like Jerome Ford obviously as well, just because of that same reason. He's the starting running back there right now until Chubb comes back. So, but he wasn't really listed here as one of my plays. But I just figured I'd mention that real quick. And then on the other side, Brian Thomas Jr. He was on the field for 77% of the dropbacks last week, and he accounted for 21% of the targets from Blossom, as we call him, Trevor Lawrence. That's impressive. In his first NFL game, 21% of the targets. So Thomas is getting looks. He apparently runs really good routes. They like what they're seeing there in Jacksonville. So I'm going to go with Brian Thomas tonight. It's a sneaky play. I'm actually starting him in one league. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there. Next game here, we got Oakland and Baltimore. Oakland is 8.5-point favorites at home. That's a lot of points. I get it, but I just don't know how Oakland can stop Baltimore. Baltimore came up short in week 1. I expect them to come back with a vengeance. We were talking about it on Friday night on our podcast. I think they're angry, and I could see Baltimore winning by double digits in this one. I'm sitting Zamir White. Alexander Madison outproduced him last week. I didn't see that coming at all. I thought Zamir White was going to be, and again, it's one game, and that's the thing. Like, we're so early in the season. Like, so many people, like, I saw guys getting cut in my leagues. Like, I'm like, you're giving up on this guy already? Like, it's crazy. It's one game. Like, but Zamir White was kind of an unproven commodity there. Like, he only had a few games last year. And he was announced as a starter. Now you have a veteran in Madison who clearly took over last week. So I would stay away from White until something changes there in Oakland. You got the Rams and the Cardinals. As I mentioned earlier, we had a viewer, David Roscoe, said my Rams are going to win today against the Cardinals. David, I agree with you. 1 point, basically a pick 'em. I mean, it is a pick 'em at this point. But I'm going to go with the Rams, even despite the fact that Puka Nacua is now out for 5 to 7 weeks. That opens the door for Demarcus Robinson. He's going to be stepping in for Puka. The Rams have the best wide receiver production in fantasy football over the last 2 seasons. So, with Cooper Kupp and then Nacua last year, I expect Demarcus Robinson to make a stand here. I think he's going to make an impact on this game. Arizona, to me, I don't know what happened with them last week. They came out to a lead. They jumped out to a lead and kind of just folded under pressure there. Marvin Harrison really didn't have much of an impact in that game. James Conner did, but I don't think James Conner is going to be running all over the Rams like he did last week. I think they're going to kind of try to bottle him up. Sneaky play. Colby Parkinson from the Rams, tight end. He's a sneaky play there because of the same situation. If Stafford doesn't believe in Demarcus Robinson yet, he might be going to Parkinson as a safety blanket in the middle of the field. So sneaky play there, tight end. If you do those daily fantasy leagues and stuff like that, check him out. Price is probably pretty low on him. Pittsburgh, 2.5-point road favorites against Denver, 36.5 over under. I'm going Pittsburgh here. Justin Fields didn't look fantastic last week, but, good enough, to get the win. Obviously, they couldn't get in the end zone, which was a little discouraging, which was actually a thing this entire preseason with Pittsburgh. They've had trouble scoring. I liked Bo Nix last week, too. I thought he played pretty well in his first game. But I just there's just something about this game here. Denver playing at home. I know it's a home opener and everything like that. I just like Pittsburgh's defense to dominate Bo Nix. I think they're going to confuse him. That defense looked pretty good, especially TJ Watt. He just looked incredible last week. David said, do the Bucs have a chance today? I said yes. I do think they have a chance today. I think they cover. Again, that's the first game we talked about today. That line is it's 7.5. I think they cover. I don't know if they can hang on to win, but I would not be surprised. So I do think they have a legitimate chance today. Thanks for checking in, brother. All right, so fantasy implications. I just have one note on this one. George Pickens is a tough play. He's going to have Patrick Surtain on him. If you have another option, I would probably go that way. Pickens had a tough matchup last week as well, but Patrick Surtain is one of the best in the business. I think they're going to look for other ways to get the ball out. I don't know if they're going to go in his direction. I don't know when you want to force the ball on Patrick Surtain and really, hurt your team there. I think Pittsburgh's going to rely on the run today. So I would sit George Pickens if you have a better option. All right, so Cincinnati takes on Kansas City. 6-point favorites at home. Over-under is 48. Will Joe Burrow have a bounce-back game? I say yes. Despite, well, to a point, he's going to have a better game than he had last week. I don't think it's going to be good enough to win. I see Kansas City winning this game. However, I do think the Bengals play better and they hang out. And this is like a fourth quarter game. It comes down to like the last 2 possessions or something. Cincinnati and Kansas City always have games like that. You know, the back and forth. I could see that definitely happening here today. Here's the thing with Burrow. Kansas City's defense had the 6th fewest points to quarterbacks last year in fantasy. And there's probably no T. Higgins. If someone can shoot me an update on that. I haven't seen anything about that yet. He said battle of poverty. We're talking about the other Pittsburgh and Denver. Thomas over Pickens. Which Thomas, Mike? Let me know which one. And then Mike also said, I think Robinson's going to be be good the next few weeks. I tend to agree too, man. But yeah, back to the Kansas City game. If someone can update me about T. Higgins, but either way, it's going to be a tough. It's going to be tough sledding. I think it's going to be an improvement for Burrow, but the Chiefs are they're just too good, man. They're going to pull out the win. But I do like the Bengals with the points. 6 points there. So, all right, and that finally leads us up to the Sunday night. We already talked about the Monday night game of the Eagles. Sunday night football, Chicago taking on Houston. Houston's home favorite, 6.5 points. Over under is 45.5. I like Houston in this game. They weren't as explosive as I thought they were going to be in the air last week. That was a Joe Mixon game, which was pretty. It was still entertaining to see Joe Mixon running all over the field again. I mean, it was nice to see him behind a decent offensive line, something that he didn't exactly have in Cincinnati, but he was still productive. But I think that Houston's going to just continue to roll here. I love them. Okay, Ryan said Higgins is doubtful. I had a feeling. But Brian Robinson over George Pickens was the question. I think I would, dude. I think I would do that. I think it's worth the shot. I think your ceiling might be higher on Robinson today. So, or on Thomas. I'm sorry, Brian Thomas. Yeah, I think I would do Brian Thomas over Pickens. That sounds crazy, but worth a shot, right? That's sometimes you take those chances and they pan out. Anyway, back to Houston. 6.5 point favorites. Like I said, I'm going Houston. I did not like Chicago last week at all. I thought they were slop. I'm Caleb Williams. I'm sitting him 93 yards, only a 48% completion percentage last week. Him and Desmond Ridder became the only 2 quarterbacks in the modern era to throw 25 passes and throw for under 100 yards. That's not good. It could be the first game jitters. It could be all that. But now you're going against a really good Houston defense and a good offense that you're going to have to keep up with. I just don't see it. I might actually throw this one in the sizzler too. That's how confident I am in Houston. I went with him last week on the show, and I'm going to stick with him. Start Tank Dell. Just go with him again. I'm going back to the Dell well. Going back to Delwell, baby. He had 3 catches of 40 yards last week. Not great. I think he's going to have a bounce back game today. I could see him really panning out for Houston today. They're going to spread that ball around there. It might be infuriating if you have those receivers, Nico Collins and Diggs and all those good. Diggs played a much bigger role last week than I expected him to. But, yeah, Mike said Delwell. All right. Well, that's pretty much going to wrap it up today. Hope you guys enjoy the games. It's going to be a fun slate of games today, man. And, of course, go Birds tomorrow night. Again, thank you to Heat Ratio Sports for hosting the Corner Pub pregame show. And, of course, Corner Pub Sports is live every Friday night at 15. And Mike has a podcast tonight with Rob Spire. It's called Your Team Sucks. So, Mike, good luck with that, brother. Hope it goes well, man. And it's basically an argument between a Cowboys fan and an Eagles fan. So that'll be on tonight around 8:00, I believe. And then last thing I want to say was a couple weeks away, I wrote a book called No One Likes Us, But We Do Care, and it's coming out October 4th on Amazon. You can pre-order it on Amazon now. It's a Kindle pre-order, and it's also going to be available in hardcover and paperback. Those won't be available until the 4th. You can't even look it up yet until the 4th. So, but yeah, so it's all about the Philadelphia fan growing up a Philly, and then dismantling the rumors about us. We're not all a bunch of jagaloons. Most of us are. Not all of us. All right, guys. This was Corner Pub Pregame. Enjoy the games. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. See yous.